Some people say you either love India or you hate it. When we were there, we actually wanted to stay for 6 weeks, but ended up leaving after 3 weeks. And in today's video, we will tell you what shocked us about India, the positive and the negative things.
We are Julia, Sven and Felix, and before our dog came into our lives, we did a 2-year world trip on a low budget with lots of hitchhiking and couchsurfing to many amazing places. And of course, we couldn't skip India because this country has always fascinated us. Let's jump right into the video with the first point. India is a country of huge contrasts. So there are luxury villas and those gated communities with beautiful modern buildings and apartments right next to a area where there are only homeless people or massive slums.
When we walked around, it was sometimes so hard for us to watch these huge gates and the homeless with bad injuries sitting right in front of them. Something that we don't really know where we are coming from. But in that moment, it really gave us a big shock because we had never seen something like that before in our lives.
Also, whenever we stayed in a hotel, it felt like staying in an oasis, and when leaving those hotels, we kind of entered the felt chaos with many people and lots of dirt and trash on the streets. So that was another big contrast that shocked us.
I think in the beginning, especially this gave us a big culture shock. Before traveling to India, we had been to many other countries, but that was just another level.
Perfect example for all those contrasts is actually the Taj Mahal itself in Agra. So it is a beautiful and huge marble building. You all know this place, but it is located right in the center of a bustling and totally narrow and also dirty and chaotic area of the city.
And we've seen so many pictures from there before that look so dreamy and calm and beautiful, and of course you often get that on social media, that you see a picture that it's nothing like the reality, but this was so different. I mean, being there, it was very special, but the whole surrounding and getting in,
it was just something you wouldn't expect when you see the Taj Mahal itself.
No. The second thing that shocked us when we traveled to India was that these famous train pictures where thousands or hundreds of people are sitting on top of the train roof is fake. You will not see this on the streets when you go to the train station. The trains are actually not super modern, but they work. They have many trains that run frequently. You can take them at all times. They operate very often and are reliable. Well, sometimes you have a few hours of delay, but you can basically travel across the whole country, and India is huge, so it was really nice going around in the train. And there are different classes, so depending on how much you're willing to pay, you get comfort or less comfort.
The next thing that shocked us about India is that how many people actually tried to scam us during our time traveling the country. So, like we already mentioned, we traveled to many different countries before, and something like that never happened, or at least not in that scale. So at some point we were just acting very defensively when people approached us, local people just talking to us. We already thought about, this guy is also trying to scam us again. So that wasn't a very nice feeling. So for example, when we wanted to catch a tuk-tuk or like a rickshaw traveling from one point in the city to another point, the rickshaw driver just would drive random routes like across the city to increase the price for us, and it happened several times. It was just not a nice feeling. It's exactly the feeling you don't want to have when you travel to some destination, that you just like shield yourself from the rest of the outside world and just think, oh, everyone is so bad and I just want to leave. Of course, seeing it from now, it is kind of understandable because the people see Westerners traveling across the country and they think, okay, we can just make a little bit more money than usually with the local people, and we understand that. But at that moment when it happened, it just felt very bad.
Yeah, you know, we always traveled on a very low budget, and whenever we went to other countries, people were interested and tried to help us in some way. They invited us to their homes or gave us a snack or just showed us around their city. And in India we had bad experience with strangers on the street, but also online when we tried to find couch surfers or when we tried to book at official stores, like a tour or something like that. People always tried to take advantage. And the interest they were showing towards us kind of felt super fake. So we were very interested in the culture and in getting to know these people better, but it felt like they were only interested in making more money. But of course you cannot generalize it, difficult word. Not every Indian person is like that, of course, but it just happened so often in a short amount of time that we felt like, what is happening? Another thing that shocked us about India was how good the food actually is. Sven is a big fan of different cuisines, so we always try everything. We go to restaurants, but also try the street food. And of course, in some countries you should be more careful when eating on the street or getting in touch with the water, for example. And in India, we just jumped right into it. We tried all the different dishes from street markets and restaurants that didn't look so nice, and it tasted like heaven.
Yeah, so it was amazing. Very spicy and so many different flavors. I always say my most favorite countries in terms of cuisine are India #1 and Thailand, and I think Turkey as well. So and China as well. Sichuan especially, I like spicy food. So India is always on top for me.
Yeah, and we didn't get any food poisoning or had any stomach issues or something like that. So it was totally fine. We can highly recommend to try everything.
The next thing that shocked us in India was how crowded it actually is. I mean, you can imagine that yourself because India is the most populated country in the whole world, and you can feel it when you travel across the country, especially in the bigger cities. Like we already mentioned before, we traveled to different countries before going to India. We also went to China, which was at that point actually the most populated country in the world, but it just felt completely different. So when you travel across this huge city of Chongqing in China, there are so many people as well when you take the tube or the metro or something like that, but everyone kind of has, you know, they have something in mind. They want to go somewhere and they want to be for themselves, so they keep their distance to you, even though it is so crowded. And in India it's just not the case, so everyone is running over everyone else and it's just completely chaos. And sometimes there are just groups of people standing around on the street and just staring somewhere and doing nothing. And
at least it felt like that.
Yeah,
maybe they were waiting for someone, but we always had the impression, what are these people doing there? or we did something, for example, we filmed a video and then some people started to gather around us.
Just like in 5 seconds there was a huge crowd around us.
And we were always like,
oh, what's going on here? We never had something like that before. It was crazy.
Another thing that shocked us about India are the animals that you will see on the streets. Like, there are cows everywhere, and when I say everywhere, I mean everywhere. It feels like they are walking across the highway, and people are very careful to not insult them. There are also elephants or monkeys, and the monkeys are
You know, they think they rule India actually, so that's what they behave like.
It felt like they are everywhere, and whenever you are holding some food in your hand, they might jump at you and grab it and run away. Sometimes when we walked at the train station, for example, when it was not that crowded, let's say early in the morning, we encountered some monkey gangs. There were so many of them that walked towards us like, give us your food, or at least it felt like that. We also had some encounters where we just left because we were scared. Yeah, be careful.
Another thing that shocked us, well, it's actually not a thing, but a place itself, is Varanasi in India, in northern India. It's a holy city for the local people. So there's the Ganges, the river flowing across the city, a huge river, and it is holy for the locals, like I already said. And what especially shocked us there was that the people are just carrying bodies across the city. So you can imagine the city, dead bodies, yeah, you can imagine the city to be very narrow and old. So I think it's thousands of years old and it still looks like that.
Which is super cool. I mean, it looks
it's also very colorful
nice.
and very special, but also again very chaotic and full, lots of chaos everywhere. And then sometimes they just carry the dead bodies across all the people and the cars through the narrow streets across the whole city to the river Ganges, and they just put their bodies inside.
I think it's a holy ritual to make the body clean, to wash it clean. But
right next to the dead bodies there are also like living bodies, just people bathing, and it's also a holy ritual for them to wash in the Ganges. I think it's something they have to do at least once in their life, or they want to do. I think it's not the most healthy thing you can do.
But it has another meaning, so that's why people do it. We understand it, but we would probably not take a bath in there. Another thing that shocked us about India was how badly the environment sometimes gets treated by locals. Luckily, we were able to meet many amazing and interesting personalities because we did couch surfing and stayed with local people in their houses, and they were very modern, they had a great education, but still sometimes when we drove, let's say, to a place to do an activity, they just took their trash from their home, their trash bag, and while driving they would throw it out of the window, and we were like, wait, what? Why are you doing this? This is not right. And they were like, everyone is doing it here. This is how you get rid of your trash. So I think the people just did it because no one ever told them that this is not a good way.
Or maybe it is really the way how to get rid of the trash. You know, they have a different trash system than we have here.
Yeah.
So it was just another shocking thing for us to see it, because it kind of felt like they just don't care about the environment at all, even though they know about all those issues about the climate change and everything. The next thing that shocked us during our time in India was our time in Kashmir. So this is a region that is disputed between India and Pakistan, and also to a little bit with China. So it is a very heated region. Since World War II, there is a conflict going on between those parties, and we traveled there and there was actually still the conflict going. It was very active, and we could do a whole video about this itself, because it was just very intense. To put it into a nutshell, what shocked us most was the presence of the military and still the riots against the military from the local people. So it was crazy, and on the other hand it was very peaceful and calm. The whole region, it was a very different feeling than the rest of India, because it was cooler, there was breathable air, there was not that much trash in the streets, and the people were just super friendly. We had an amazing time with the local people there in Kashmir, and it was just a crazy experience to travel to this region.
And the last thing that shocked us about India was how cheap it actually is to travel around. You can have an amazing trip for not that big amount of money and see all the places. Of course, you can also spend a fortune, because India has some of the most amazing and luxurious hotels in the world that cost a few €1,000 per night, but you can also spend like €5 to stay in a hostel.
Or even less.
Yes, and meals are also cheap and transportation is cheap, so it's great for backpackers on a low budget. All in all, we can say that traveling to India was very exciting for us, sometimes in a positive way, sometimes in a more negative way, but it was definitely a journey that we will not forget again. But after only 3 weeks and so many things that happened and so much going on, we felt very exhausted, so we decided to leave and went to Nepal instead and go on a hike, and ended up only traveling the northern part. Many people always tell us that we should have visited the southern part instead, because it's more chill, and maybe we will do that sometime in the future. But right now nothing is planned, because I think it's also a bit too hot for Monsieur.
A bit chaotic and a bit too hot, I think, yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't really like loud noises and chaos.
Crowds of people, yeah.
Yeah, but that's that's it for today's video. We hope you liked it. If you did, give it a thumb up, and yeah, we wish you happy travels and hopefully see you again next week.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye bye.